Hello and welcome back to your only Accies preview for this weekend's game against Partick Thistle. Brandon, let's be honest, we were probably lucky to walk away with a point on Saturday against Dunfermline in the 2-2 draw. We'll talk about the first goal, initially David Moyle's first goal, because at the time, I think we all agreed that it's a foul on the keeper, should not have stood. But since watching the replays, you have a different opinion since watching it.
I wouldn't say a different opinion. I think when it's initially went in, I think everybody's been extremely shocked at the fact that it's been given. I think when you first see it, it does look a lot worse than when you go and watch it in replay. When you watch it in replay, the ball is there to be won, and to be fair to Moyle, he actually hits the ball before it's in. The keeper doesn't have it in his hands.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a foul. He clatters him, regardless if he's got the ball in his hands or not. Like they've both went for it. And if you're saying a 50-50, two players are going for it, but then one player clatters him, obviously the player that's been clattered gets the foul, and that's what's happened there. The refs maybe thought, well, the ball was there to be won. It's not in his hands. He's headed it and he scored, but he's clattered him. So, that was one that had been a foul for them. And then they go right up the park, and right before half time, what I thought was a Stonewall penalty. I've saw the replay of that one again, but as far as everyone I spoke to, everybody has said that it should have been a penalty. And
Yeah.
I agree, it should have been a penalty.
Yeah, I think so as well. I kind of sit centre stand and had a pretty clear view of it. And in the press afterwards, they mentioned about clipping his heel and stuff like that. I never saw that. I just saw Ellis Brown have two hands on his back. I think it would have been soft because Ellis Brown doesn't look as if he could shove MD over. Never mind the Dunfermline player. But I think it should have been a penalty. Two hands in his back. He has gave him a wee push and he's went down. So I think we were quite lucky to get off of that. But I mean, the performance overall was pretty poor, let's be honest, for the 90 minutes. I guess, as I said at the start, we're probably lucky to walk away with a point. Decisions obviously went for us, but I found it really frustrating that we kind of refused to go forward. A lot of the time when we had the ball, which was very few and far between, we struggled to keep the ball as well. It was a lot of sidewards and backwards passing. And we saw Kennedy and Ellis Brown get to these positions out wide, and rather than cross it in, we're being forced, both because of the positions of the other attackers, but maybe confidence as well, just forcing themselves backward and sidewards. And it ended up being a really, really frustrating game. And as I keep saying, lucky to get the point.
So it's frustrating, the fact that obviously you're mentioning sort of players passing the ball back. Ultimately, the players are having to do that because there's nobody up top, and it's frustrating because we keep going on and on about this boring setup that clearly hasn't worked, and I'm not going to bore up people by continuously going on about it. It's hard not to, because we're watching it on a persistent basis, but it's clearly not working. Other teams are latching onto it, and ultimately players are having to pass the ball back the way constantly because there's no support up top. They're either crossing the ball into one striker that's getting marked by three defenders because they know what's going to happen, or they need to go back the way. So it's so frustrating. We've got these players that clearly could be utilised a lot better. It showed it in the only period of the game where we were by far the better team was the last sort of 15-20 minutes, where we had more attacking players on. We've got players that are capable of playing like that, and it shouldn't need to be when we're chasing a game that we go at teams like that, especially on Saturday there when we're playing Dunfermline, who have been ranked rotten all season. They're below us in the league, and it's a game that if we win it, we create we create quite a big gap and make the rest of the running a lot more comfortable for us. But once again, it's another draw, one win in 9 games now, that ultimately we're in a very dodgy position because the way in which we set up, and we don't have that attacking flair for the minute the game starts, which we should be doing, because players we've got that came on in the second half there could and should be starting for the get-go, but ultimately that's not how he wants to play. It's not how he wants to set up, and it's another draw which could have been a defeat.
Yeah, I questioned the setup and the lack of change in it in the press conference after the game, and And Stuart Taylor kind of came out and I suppose defended his team as you would expect him to do. Said that they've got good quality tricky wingers and they've got battling midfielders, and so this is the setup they think works. He also said that it's not so much about the formation, it's more about the system. So, you know, he's playing this formation, but if the system isn't right, it doesn't really matter what formation you play, which I can kind of understand he's going for that, but I don't see either of them really working or getting results, formation or style. So, and then we also spoke to David Moyle, who said something interesting where he was asked about playing up top by himself or playing with a partner. And he said that this is the system the manager wants to play. They've got a game plan going into each game. But then he ended it by saying, but I do like playing with Chucky. And as you said, in the last 15, 20 minutes when Andy Ryan came on and partner David Moyle was sat a little bit behind them, that was when a lot of our dominance was, and a lot of the chances. And I say we were lucky to walk away with a point, and I think we were. But you could probably argue we were unlucky not to then go and win it in the last 10, 15 minutes with the chances we had. So, and including Andy Ryan's edge of the box header that looped down and hit the bar as well. So we're probably unlucky in that sense too, but you do see that difference. And that's why I'm surprised that it's not the first time we've seen that happen either this season. And that's why I'm surprised that the refusal to change the system from the beginning.
I don't know what it is, if it's stubbornness, if he's trying to prove a point, but the stats don't lie. We've persisted with that setup. I can't remember that. You know, I've forgotten my Gary Neville stats for that.
Get the notebook back out.
Get the notebook back out. I've still got it somewhere, but no, we've persisted with it in 95% of the games we've played, and it's not been good enough. It's clearly not been good enough. The games in which we've had two up top or we've changed the setup or style, we're undefeated in. We've got players that are far more capable of where we are just now, and the persistence and stubbornness not to change it when it clear as day could be better is ultimately what's still got us in a relegation fight, and we're going to be in for the next few games. In the press conference, the comment about, oh, hindsight's a wonderful thing sort of thing, or we could change it but we don't know how it would end. That's all well and good, but you're not changing it, and every fan can see how it is going to end. Do you know what I mean? And every team knows how we're going to set up. So it's really frustrating. It doesn't work. Everybody bar him, I think, can see it doesn't work. The players clearly want to not play it. They know that they're more capable in it, and they might be saying, "Oh, we've got wide players that," but you're playing these tricky wide players that aren't having any luck whatsoever, because when they get to the sort of box, they've got one person up top getting marked by three folk. We're obviously about to go in the next 5 minutes to preview a game, and there's no point even doing it because it's frustrating, mate. And I just don't understand how they can persist with it, but no point even fighting anymore. It is what it is. And
well, before we talk about the Partick Thistle game of the weekend, just again a quick thank you to those who came to our Twitter Spaces on Sunday night. We'll be looking to do that again this Sunday as well, make it a weekly thing. So it was good to get Accies fans on and get your opinions, and it was a well-attended one again, so thank you for that. Looking at Partick Thistle then at the weekend.
Squeaky bum time.
Squeaky bum time is correct. Squeaky bum time is correct. It's getting very scary, let's be honest. Down the bottom, we've still got a 6-point gap between us and Queen of the South at our second bottom, and then we've got a 7-point gap between us and bottom, but still 7 games left to go, so that gap can easily change. In the way Queen of the South we're going now, they've got a little bit of their manager bounce. There's no saying that they couldn't catch us up if we don't start picking results up. Looking at the two teams though for Saturday, Accies only with the 1 win in the last 5 games, 3 draws and a loss as well.
9.
And 1 win and 9, in total. And then you get Partick Thistle, who lost their last game against Dougie Morton, but Dougie Morton are on great form, but have 2 wins and 2 draws in their other 4. So they're on decent form, and Accies are not. So I can only see this going one way. I would like to think that there would be some change in the team, because that pitch is unplayable at the moment. Partick's pitch is unplayable at the moment, and if he wants to get the ball down in the dig and play football, we're not going to get very far. So I would like to think there is some change to that to suit the pitch and to suit the conditions. but whether it's another case of stubbornness and not wanting to do it, or whether he's going to try and persist by playing the ball on the deck on that pitch.
If you've got any brains whatsoever, even the smallest, tiniest bit of brain, and you put any logical thinking into it, you just look back to Arbroath. It's in my opinion, I've got my ideas of how I'd like to see the team set up, and I think every other fan has their ideas, but surely we put a bit of logical thinking, like you've touched on with the pitch, surely you change it up to be slightly the same as what the Arbroath away game is. It's very, very similar type of game. Partick Thistle, not that different to Arbroath. Pitch as well. Pitch is absolutely rotten. You're not going to be playing much football on it. You'd imagine there'll be a bit more of the long ball sort of thing played by Accies. But if you're playing that long ball up to an isolated striker up top himself, then what's the point? And then you're asking two quick wingers to try and get up and support.
Yep.
It's not gonna happen. There's a lot of other games that I would say massively change it up in comparison to what we have recently. Like games like on Saturday there, we should have far changed it up and we should have been more attacking. I'm not saying go and change it up and be far more attacking this, and thinking how you should set up. And I think the Arbroath away game is a prime example of how we should set up this game. What we do it? Nope. Will they set up the way in which he did against Dunfermline? Yep. Will we get beat? Yep.
I was gonna mention the Arbroath game as well because I completely agree. I think this would be the perfect time to play. Again, I wish I remember the guy's name on the Twitter Spaces the first week when he mentioned the 3-5-2 and changed that formation. I think this is the perfect game to do that because we'll play Partick 3 times this season. We get humped. We've been beaten narrowly at Partick, and then we drew at home. In all 3 games, they dominated that midfield. So brutally dominated that midfield. So this would be the perfect game, I think, to crowd that midfield out a little bit. And whether that's a case of having, he said in the press that Martin's now back in training, so whether it's a case of you have Martin Spence and then Mullen just behind Ryan and Moyo as a double, 3 at the back, and have your, say, Lawson and McDonald on either wing, whatever you like to say. I think this is the perfect game to introduce something like that. But as you said, is there a point in going into it in detail because we know how it's going to set up? Let's look at kind of your overall sense for the game then. How do you see this one going? Let's step away from how do you think we're going to set up. How do you see the game going?
I think Partick Thistle, they're in a fairly decent run, but I don't, for any stretch of imagination, from how I've been reading how their games have went, I don't think they've been completely dominant in matches. They've been sort of getting wins here and there. And it's like I says, there's not much between many teams in the league. I think, like you said, in the previous games, they've completely dominated in the midfield. And you'd like to think that that's been noticed in previous games and they would take action on that. But it's frustrating, mate, because we can see what should be done. Majority of other people can see what should be done, and there's no point in going on there. So I'd like to think we will pack the midfield, have the 2 wing backs, and then you have someone up top with him, because the pitch is rotten. You're not going to be able to play any football in it. So you'd like to, although you don't like to see teams going with a long ball and you don't like to not see your team play football, you need to be you need to be understanding of where you are at times as well. And that's where we are at the present moment. I understand what he says with the anxiety in fans, and he's not going to let that sort of pass on to the players. We've now got 7 games left. 7 games left to stay in the championship. I don't know what he's thinking going into Saturday, but I really, really, really do hope that he doesn't go with his usual setup, because we'll get completely overrun in midfield, and I think we'll see an easy, comfortable Partick Thistle win otherwise.
All right, well, let's get your score prediction then, since you're talking about it. You're saying Partick Thistle win. What's your score prediction?
3-0 Thistle.
Wow, okay. I don't know if to go in my heart or my head. I have to go in my head. I do think Partick will win this one. As I said, it's not a pitch that football gets played on, and if we persist with how we are doing the now, it'll be pretty easy, I think, for Partick. So I'm I'm going to say 2-0 Partick. I'm going to say 2-0 Partick, but I do think if we stick, as I said, with Dunfermline, if we stick with what we are, Partick will win it.
They'll overrun. They've got the Partick's best part of their team is their midfield, their central midfield. They pack that midfield and they've got players in that midfield that are complete engines, players that we should have signed, for instance, Kyle Turner. They'll just overrun us massively. They're not a team to try and play football, Thistle. So if we try and play football against them on that park, they'll overrun us and they'll just beat us comfortably. I have no confidence in the manager changing it and being logically thinking, because he's not done it all throughout the season. He's too stubborn to do it. And I think he'd prove a lot of people wrong, and he'd actually maybe get people on his side for next season if he stopped being so stubborn and realised it and puts his hands up and says, right, I've got it wrong. This style doesn't suit us. Players don't like it. Players prefer otherwise. I'm going to change it. I'm going to keep the team in the league, and we'll go next season with what we've got and improve on that. But I'm just quite worried now, and I'll be looking at other scores on Saturday, and I shouldn't be needing to do that. You should be concentrating yourself, but that is what it is, and I'm not feeling confident at all. But hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
All right. Well, as always, you can let us know your score predictions by replying to the tweet we put up on match day. Thank you once again for watching. On Sunday night, probably around about 7 o'clock, usually we do it. We'll be looking to do a Twitter Spaces. So as always, link to our Twitter will be down below. You can join that and join in the conversation. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you again soon.